4,200 people were watching live when Jaidyn Alexis called the father of her kids a snitch, and she didn't raise her voice to do it. She said it flat, like a fact she was tired of holding. Somewhere in a cell block that isn't hers to talk about, according to her, a man got jumped for allegedly telling a guard where something came from. And then, still according to her, somebody in that same block made sure he wore the punishment. Not a bruise, not a black eye, something you can't wash off before the next head count. The same week, a 4-car pileup with her own kids buckled in the back seat is still trending under a word she says is a lie. 2 stories. 1 woman. 0 days off. And real quick before any of that gets unpacked. Follow Ring the Little Bell. So the next drop doesn't get buried, this paper trail runs long. Here's what's actually documented in the order it happened, not the order the timeline made it feel like it happened. Johnathan Porter, the man everybody calls Blueface, walked out of a California state prison on November 3rd, 2025, after serving close to 2 years of a 4-year sentence a judge handed him in August 2024 for violating probation tied to a 2021 assault on a nightclub bouncer. Jaidyn Alexis, mother of 2 of his kids, was in a 4-vehicle collision with both children in the back seat. She told the Shade Room directly that nobody was seriously hurt and that the intoxication chatter circulating online is not true. 2 headlines months apart on the calendar, now sitting in the same comment section, and the part nobody's tracking yet is how those 2 dates line up with a third one, a much older one. That explains why this exact fight was always going to happen. We'll get there. Before we lay the paper down, add one more name to the roster the timeline is quietly holding, because the argument only makes sense once every party is on the board. Nevaeh Akira, the girlfriend Blueface confirmed on stream, publicly before he went inside, is pregnant with his child per a complex report attached to a livestream confirmation clip. Add Bravo, his former road manager, the man Jaidyn later said publicly she had been involved with while Blueface was locked up. Add Carlisa Saffold Harvey, Blueface's mother, roughly 500,000 followers deep on Instagram. Bio reads, ICO of Sixit Network, the one who narrates every family incident in real time from her own account. 6 people, 1 custody constellation, and a comment section that hasn't seen the whole board at once until now. Let's lay the paper down first. Start with the crash, because it's the one with an actual on-record statement attached to it. Not a live stream, not a screen-recorded rant, an actual quote given to an actual outlet. When the Shade Room reached out after the pileup went viral, Jaidyn didn't dodge. We are all okay. Nobody was seriously injured and material items are replaceable, she wrote back, before adding a simple thanks for checking. That's the whole statement. No lawyer language. No spin. When the drunk driving rumor specifically got put in front of her, she answered that one too. Not sure why that is circulating, but it is not true. Me and my kids were let go and made a home safely. Sit with that phrase, let go. Not cleared, not exonerated. Let go. That's the kind of word choice a defense attorney would flag before it ever left the group chat, and it's exactly the kind of word choice a person with nothing to hide doesn't usually think twice about. Carlisa Saffold, Blueface's mother, who has never once in this saga stayed off a comment section she had access to, showed up under a repost with her own contribution to the record. Had their coats on, seat belts on, she wrote about her grandkids. Then, separately, thanks to the security guard. And then a line that reads almost like a prayer closing out a courtroom day. God, is good baby's okay? Mama okay? It was a good day. 3 sentences, 3 different jobs. 1 confirms the kids were restrained. 1 thanks a third party who apparently had to get physically involved. 1 just prays it closed. Nobody said DUI. Nobody said sober. The family's own statement is doing a very specific dance around a very specific word. Pin the date on Carlisa's post, because that pin matters when past 2 comes around. The Shade Room's Instagram carousel reporting the crash lands on December 15th, 2025, which places the collision roughly 6 weeks after Blueface's November 3rd release. 6 weeks. Not 2 years. Not a decade. 6 weeks between a man walking out of Lancaster State Prison and the mother of his kids ending up on a shoulder with a wrecked car and a rumor she has to answer publicly. That window is the story hiding underneath the story. One more piece belongs here before we move off the raw documents, the pregnancy detour. Johnathan Rock claimed publicly that Blueface had multiple women pregnant at once, Jaidyn included. Carlisa got online fast to shut that down on Jaidyn's behalf, and when Alexis finally addressed it herself, her answer was short. No, she's not pregnant, full stop. Notice who spoke first. Not Jaidyn. Carlisa. That tells you this beef has more moving parts than just two X's on a live stream. There's also the Nevaeh piece nobody's putting the same sentence as the crash, and it belongs there. According to Shade Room reporting, Carlisa says she warned Nevaeh directly that Blueface was going to pop out with Johnathan Rock during his tour cycle, a warning she says she delivered while Nevaeh was already pregnant. That's the same mother who, weeks later, is thanking a security guard under her other grandkids' crash post. Same account, same tone, same job, landing the family narrative before the outlets can staff it themselves. Carlisa isn't a bystander in this timeline. She's the unpaid press desk. Now, the older paper, the stuff that explains why the word snitch landed with the weight it landed with. In January 2024, Blueface turned himself in on a probation violation connected to that 2021 bouncer assault, and cameras caught him walking into the courthouse, saying, handling some mandatory issues. I'll see you on the other side, before adding, only a real playa would go to jail looking like he finna go to the Himalayas, in touch via Yahoo. Go back further to October 2023, when his own attorney, Christina Weil-Develd, told the same outlet, this morning Mr. Porter was sentenced to probation not to exceed 3 years, and he has the ability to earn a reduction to a gross misdemeanor charge upon successful completion of his probation. Read that promise next to what actually happened 10 months later, a 4-year prison sentence, not a reduced misdemeanor. That's a successful completion that didn't happen, and the terms of that probation specifically required him to abstain from alcohol and drugs entirely, which matters in about 4 minutes, so hold on to it. One structural clarification the outlets keep blurring, because it changes how the sentence reads. The October 2023 probation deal Weil-Develd negotiated was in Nevada in front of Judge Kathleen E. Delaney in Clark County for a 2022 shooting outside a Las Vegas strip club. The 4-year sentence he ended up serving in California was a separate case, the 2021 assault track. 2 states, 2 dockets, 2 probation officers, 1 calendar catching up with him at once. That's not a technicality. That's the reason the exit ramp language in Pass 1 matters. He was inside 2 exit ramps simultaneously, and per his own on-camera explanation on a Big Boy interview posted after his release, the specific misstep that closed the Nevada ramp was traveling to Utah for a show against his terms. Then a cell phone video from Salt Lake City circulating publicly. He said it himself on Big Boy's platform. 6 months became 4 years. His own words, his own math, and then the claim that actually lit this fire, a live stream reported and reclipped across multiple pages, where Jaidyn alleged Blueface told jail staff where contraband came from while he was locked up, and that the inmates she says he implicated later assaulted him and, relayed by the outlet, humiliated him by throwing feces on him. It is a claim, specific, ugly, detailed, made by someone who was in a relationship with him for years. It is not a CDCR, incident report. Nobody has produced the document that turns, she said, into the state confirmed. Both things can be true at once, specific enough to feel real, and specific isn't the same thing as verified. The reposts don't stop there. A second aggregator page, I Am Latimer C., ran the same clip with the framing that Jaidyn was airing out Blueface, alleging he snitched while in jail, which she claims led to him being assaulted. Different account, same clip, near identical wording. Both reposts treating the allegation as declarative even while the underlying quote from Jaidyn stays framed as a claim. That's how a claim launders into a fact, not by anyone verifying it, but by enough aggregators posting it in the same phrasing that the qualifier falls off in the reader's head. The word alleged is doing all the load-bearing work in that sentence, and the load is heavier than a single adverb was built to carry. One more frame belongs here, before the overlay. The timeline laid end-to-end. October 2023, plea, sobriety clause, exit ramp offered. January 2024, violation, exit ramp missed. August 2024, sentence handed down. November 2025, released after roughly half of it. Weeks later, back online, back in Jaidyn's comments, back in a crash cycle and a snitch allegation. For timelines, collapsing into the same 6-week window once he's home. Add a fifth beat that most timelines are quietly skipping, somewhere between the January 2024 walk-in and the August 2024 sentencing. Per an Instagram post from a widely reposted jail source page, Blueface reportedly struggled through the first 8 months behind bars. The account phrased it, "Homeboy wouldn't come out for showers." Take that at whatever weight jail source aggregator gossip earns, which is not much on its own. But it's worth putting next to the snitch allegation, not because it corroborates it. It doesn't, but because it establishes that the environment Jaidyn is describing was being reported as hostile to him from other directions too. 2. Low-tier receipts, pointing the same general way, don't prove anything. They just widen the space where the higher-tier receipt would eventually land, if it ever surfaces. Actually, hold on. Let me back up on that successful completion thread for a second, because this is where the two stories stop being two stories. The probation Blueface was on required full sobriety. Now, line that against what he's been saying about Jaidyn on his own stream, that she's the one with the drinking problem, not him. Watch the redirect happen in real time. The person whose signed court paperwork required abstinence is the one narrating somebody else's relationship with alcohol as the character flaw worth broadcasting. That's a pattern doing exactly what patterns do, pointing at the thing it's trying to make you forget about. Same overlay logic applies to timing on the snitch claim. It didn't surface while he was inside. It surfaced after his November 2025 release, after he was already rebuilding his platform. Information like that, if true, usually leaks the moment it happens. It didn't. It surfaced from the outside, months later, in the middle of an unrelated custody and content beef. That doesn't make it false. It makes it strategically timed. Widen that timing lens by one more click. His first public appearance out was a Twitch stream with DDG, who reportedly bought him the setup as a homecoming gift. Not a press interview. Not a written statement. A live channel with real-time monetization built in. The platform he came home to isn't the platform he left. Twitch had become the family's dominant channel while he was inside, and the numbers were pointing at Jaidyn, not him. That reframes the snitch allegation timing one more degree. It lands on a stream ecosystem where whoever tells the more magnetic version of the story that week keeps the higher subscriber count the following month. Same platform, same currency, opposite corners. Here's a detail almost nobody's zoomed in on. Carlisa thanking the security guard. Not police, not paramedics. Private security doesn't file a DUI report, doesn't run a breathalyzer. If there's a police report with a number on it, it hasn't surfaced anywhere in this saga, and somebody in these comments has almost certainly tried and hit a wall, because every search our team ran came up empty too. Layer that against another mechanic hiding in plain sight. Blueface, per Shade Room reporting, shows off new family car in the days after the crash. A wrecked vehicle publicly replaced in near real time by the co-parent who was locked up when the mother of his kids allegedly failed to lock the vehicle down safely. Read the family car reveal as content, and it's a soft flex. Read it as receipts, and it's a man staging visible responsibility on a timeline that had 6 weeks earlier publicly reintroduced him as someone who couldn't be trusted with his own signed paperwork. Both frames are valid. Only one of them explains why the reveal got posted on a Shade Room push instead of a private garage delivery. There's a smaller detail in that same comment thread worth the glass, the word granny. Not grandmother, granny. Soft, casual, proud of herself, deployed in the exact comment fielding whether her grandchildren just survived a collision. That word is doing PR work, and it worked. The tone under that post is noticeably gentler than anywhere else in the saga. Behavioral magnifier, one click over. Check how many times Carlos's public statements about her son's exes cycle through the same three-move sequence. Defend the ex, threaten legal action against a rumor, then step forward publicly with a mama said tone that softens whichever news cycle she's landing on. In late 2023, she was, per Instagram archive, threatening legal action against people spreading rumors about Blueface and Jaidyn. In late 2025, she was thanking a security guard while confirming her grandkids' coats and seatbelts. In between, she was on live addressing Chrisian Rock's pregnancy claim before Jaidyn herself did. Same playbook, 3 different chapters. That's not coincidence. That's not the word we use here. That's operational discipline dressed up as maternal instinct. Flip to the legal clause one more time. Ability to earn a reduction upon successful completion is contract language for here's your exit ramp. Don't miss it. He missed it. Whatever the violation actually was, never itemized publicly, it converted an exit ramp into a 4-year sentence. Compare that to what a first-time DUI with no prior record typically carries, and the disparity gets loud fast. One side has a documented court-verified pattern of violated terms. The other has an unverified accusation and a security guard thank you note. Business magnifier. Pull up the platform math because it changes the read on why this fight is being staged where it's being staged. Reports circulated post-release that Blueface had generated roughly $20,000 on Twitch in a short window after coming home, with DDG credited as the person who set up the stream. Meanwhile, Jaidyn, streaming through the same window Blueface was inside, cleared 2,020 subscribers in a single stream and got visibly emotional realizing she had passed him. At Twitch's standard sub-economics, 2,020 subs at $2.50 per sub, a partner's floor cut is over $5,000 from one night, and observers doing the math on comment sections pushed that number higher when tier upgrades were factored in. That's not just she has an audience. That's an actively appreciating asset that shifted the household's earning center of gravity while the traditional earner was locked out of it. Same logic applies to the live stream clip pages themselves. Not one reaction account recirculating the feces allegation used the word alleged. Not one. That's a missing word repeated across a dozen reposts. And it's exactly the kind of detail that decides whether a story stays a story or becomes a rumor with a permanent address. Digital magnifier tightened. Pull the actual timestamps on the reposts and something small but useful surfaces. The on-site global media post carrying the Snitch/feces allegation and the I Am Laudermercy post carrying the same clip both hit the timeline within roughly the same 72-hour window, both using near-identical framing, neither pausing to attribute the claim to a court document. That's not distribution, that's amplification choreography. Aggregator pages don't coordinate, they mirror the algorithm's velocity. When 2 of them run the same claim on the same day, using the same verbs, the algorithm is telling you which version of the story is going to dominate the search results for the next 6 months. And it's not the version with the qualifier attached. Now the framing war. The shade room ran it clean. Direct quote, note on the kids, done. Statement first, drama second. The live stream ecosystem ran with the ugliest word available in either direction. Alcoholic. Snitch. None of that vocabulary shows up in a single verified document. It shows up exclusively in what people say while a subscriber count climbs in the corner of the screen. Watch how Hollywood Unlocked staged it against the Shade Room's version. Hollywood Unlocks headline pushed the phrase denies drinking and driving rumors and included the framing that Jaidyn fled the multi-car crash. Fled is a legally loaded verb. The Shade Room's copy never used it. 2 outlets, same underlying event, one leaning into a word that implies criminal conduct and one deliberately holding back from it. That's not neutral coverage difference. That's editorial risk tolerance. One outlet's willing to publish a verb that could get referenced in a defamation notice, the other one isn't. Watch which one gets sued eventually and which one doesn't. The answer's usually in the verbs, not the volumes. Hot New Hip Hop staged it differently again. Their crash write-up cross-linked the story to a separate item about Jaidyn Alexis and Chrisean Rock fighting over Blueface dated November 6, 2025. That cross-link isn't decorative. It's telling the reader, without saying it out loud, that this crash sits inside a longer combat arc that started 3 days after his release. The outlet doesn't have to allege causation. The sidebar links do the work for them. That's a framing choice, not a filing choice. Somebody's going to say the loud version is the honest version, that people don't invent specifics like that out of nowhere. Respect the instinct. Specificity usually tracks with truth. But specificity isn't the same currency as documentation, and on a story with this much financial incentive on both sides of the camera, detailed and verified, have to stay two different words. The dismantle isn't "she's lying." It's "we don't have the paper yet." And that asterisk applies to the drunk driving claim too. Second Steelman, different door in. The strongest counterargument to the whole overlay isn't from the comments. It's from the big boy interview Blueface sat down for after his release, where he framed the 4-year sentence as a Utah travel technicality rather than a fundamental character issue. That's a fair read to Steelman. He'd argue the paper isn't showing a repeated pattern of disregard so much as one poorly timed trip that a judge weighted heavier than expected. Give that its full weight for one beat. Then hold it against the Vibe reporting on the sobriety clause, the January 2024 walk-in, the exit ramp Wild Deviled had negotiated, and the outcome that didn't match her negotiated words. And the pattern reads as a series of choices, not a single unlucky calendar entry. The Steelman survives about 90 seconds before the receipts get to it. It doesn't get dismantled with insults. It gets dismantled with dates. Okay, breathe. Let's zoom out. This entire cycle, the crash denial, the snitch claim, the pregnancy rumor Carlisa shut down publicly, isn't actually about who's right. It's about who's owed. Loyalty economics. Years of Jaidyn getting dragged online while pregnant with his kids versus a man just home from a stretch trying to reclaim a narrative he doesn't fully control anymore. Look at who's actually collecting interest. While Blueface was locked up, Jaidyn built a Twitch presence from scratch and surpassed him in subscribers, got visibly emotional doing it. The person everyone wants to paint as reckless built an actual platform during the exact window the responsible party was in a cell for violating his own sobriety terms. If this were purely about who's the more stable parent, the math wouldn't be close. Extend that defense one row deeper. Blueface didn't just come home to a household where the Twitch numbers had flipped. He came home to a household where the paternity of the child he raised with Chrisean Rock was still being publicly relitigated. As recently as early 2026, per iHeart reporting on a Power 105.1 write-up, he was again saying publicly that Chrisean Jr. isn't biologically his, first floated in December 2023, meaning the same man narrating Jaidyn's stability is himself carrying an unresolved paternity dispute across a public timeline that predates his prison stint and outlives it. That's not commentary. That's just a fact next to another fact, letting them sit uncomfortably in the same paragraph. And I'll say the part that's going to upset somebody. The snitch allegation, if true, doesn't belong to Jaidyn to weaponize the way she's using it. If a man got genuinely assaulted in custody, that's a safety failure by a facility, not a punchline for a live stream audience. That's not defending him. That's saying the currency she's spending it as isn't the currency it should be. Here's another jab, drier. A man whose own attorney laid out an exact roadmap to avoid prison, stay sober, complete probation, and didn't do it, doesn't get to be the moral authority on anyone else's relationship with alcohol. That's not cruelty. That's arithmetic. One more, almost sympathetic. The co-parent who came home to find his old road manager named in a live stream by the mother of his kids and whose reaction was to abruptly end the stream mid-sentence. That reaction, in isolation, reads more human than any of his other reactions in this window. That's the closest he gets to a moment of genuine hurt on the record, which is worth naming because otherwise the verdict flattens him into cartoon shape, and the paper doesn't actually support cartoon shape. It supports a person making bad decisions inside real pain. Both things. Absurdist jab 1 degree further, the man who spent an on-camera courthouse walk-in comparing his outfit to a Himalayas expedition is now, roughly 2 years later, using the platform DDG bought him as a homecoming gift to litigate whether his ex is a fit parent. There's a version of that timeline that could only be pitched as satire. There's another version where every date on it is documented. Same timeline. Depends on which lens you're holding. And here's the one that'll split the room. So I'll say it plainly instead of hedging it into mush. The person who spent 2 years building an audience while the other sat in a cell for violating his own signed terms currently has the moral high ground in this exact argument. Not the whole relationship, just this fight this week, this paper trail. Disagree in the comments if you want. I'm reading everyone. One more, because fair's fair. Jaidyn saying let go instead of cleared is a real crack in her own record. If there's a report out there with a number on it, it changes this. Until then, she gets the same asterisk everyone else in this story gets. Extend that hedge 1 more inch, because the paper deserves the honesty. The snitch allegation is being carried by aggregator reposts, not by a corrections officer, not by a filing, not by a named inmate on the record. If a facility report ever surfaces confirming any part of the assault in custody claim, the verdict here holds. If a facility report ever surfaces contradicting it, or if no report ever surfaces at all and the story dies in the caption feed, then Jaidyn's high ground shrinks to whatever the crash paperwork ends up saying, and that paperwork is currently a security guard's word and an unquoted let go. 2 hedges, 1 direction. This read is confident not closed. The mainstream version of this cycle, the one the Shade Room ran carefully and Hollywood Unlocked pushed harder on, has done something that shouldn't get lost. Both outlets, whatever their verb tolerance, kept the kids' names inside their reporting radius. Javon and Journey. Their names are in the write-ups, indexed against the same drunk driving accusation their mother denied publicly. That's the mainstream frame the press won't examine on itself. Outlets covering a custody-adjacent story index 2 minors' names against an unverified DUI accusation because the metrics rewarded it. That's not a Blueface problem or a Jaidyn problem. That's the coverage economy problem hiding behind both of them. The line that'll sit with people longest isn't about either of them. It's about a security guard who apparently did more real-time crisis management on that road than either family's PR did in the following 48 hours. So, where does this actually go? Not what either camp wants, what the paper trail suggests. The most likely landing is the least satisfying one. Nothing gets legally resolved because nothing was ever formally filed in a way that forces resolution. Watch this cool, the way these things always cool, not with an apology, but with a louder controversy burying the old one before either the DUI question or the feces allegation gets a document attached to it. Watch how quickly a Nevea Kira delivery or a new Krasian Rock cycle or a fresh Bravo revelation pulls the algorithm off this specific crash inside 30 days. The moment the next headline lands, the search result inertia on this story freezes exactly where it froze. With Hollywood Unlocks fled framing still cached, with the snitch allegations still unqualified in half the reposts, and with the let-go phrasing sitting there permanently between cleared and arrested without ever getting resolved either direction. Don't be shocked when the family car reveal on X becomes the most recirculated image from this entire arc, because visual receipts always beat linguistic ones in the second-round algorithm cycle. And by the 12-month mark, expect the SEO on Jaidyn's name to have the word crash attached to it more permanently than any statement she's ever released. The wild card is a records request. Don't be surprised if somebody pulls whatever exists on that crash, a citation, or confirmation none was issued. That single document either ends the DUI conversation permanently or reopens it in a way neither side can spin out of. Watch the jail claim, too. If a facility incident report ever surfaces, it either turns the allegation into documented fact or exposes it as jailhouse folklore. Somebody always talks eventually. Extend that wild card. Once a records request lands on the crash, the second-order effect is on Carlissa's post, because if the paper says something different than her caption implied, her caption becomes evidence, not commentary. Same mechanic on the jail claim. If CDCR ever confirms or denies an in-custody assault, the reposts that skipped the word alleged become receipts against themselves, not against Blueface. The next window will decide whether aggregator pages get to keep operating with the same qualifier optional style they've been running on, or whether one specific document forces a retroactive correction wave that reshapes how the next Blueface family cycle gets reported. Once one filing hits, expect the caption economy to pretend it always used the word alleged even when the cache versions show it didn't. The residue, 5 years out, isn't about who won the argument. It's about two kids growing up searchable, every custody detail, every crash clip indexed, and waiting for them the first time they type their own names into a search bar. That's the part that doesn't trend. That's the part that just accumulates. Extend the residue one more layer. By the time Javon and Journey are old enough to open a laptop unsupervised, the archive attached to their names will include a car crash their mother denied being intoxicated during, a jail snitch allegation their father was never formally cleared or convicted of, a paternity dispute involving a half-sibling that's been public since before they could read, and a Twitch subscriber count arc that documented their mother's proudest single night moment as a business milestone attached to her. X's absence. None of that is fixable retroactively. What is fixable is how the next round of coverage handles their names. Watch how many outlets, over the next 24 months, still index the kids' full first names against verbs like fled and drunk when the underlying question hasn't been legally answered. The failure prediction for the coverage economy isn't that it'll do this once. It's that it won't stop until a lawsuit forces it to. 2 reads on where the next 30 days go. Either this cools the second custody logistics force them into a room together, or it never cools because the checks clear the same either way. Pick the one you think is actually true and tell me why. That number, 4,200, was never really the point. The point was what a woman says flat, without raising her voice, when she stopped caring who's uncomfortable hearing it. If somebody's got the actual paperwork on either the crash or what happened inside that facility, the comments are open and the team is reading everyone. Lock in, hit the bell. The next case is already in research, and we still don't have the document that closes this one. That's just where the paper trail runs out for now.